Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of the Amateur Experts Podcast, where we are experts on absolutely nothing. Host Landon Oliver here with my co-host Andrew Scott. What's going on, dude?
Excited to get into what probably is my favorite non-NFC West division in football, man. You got three really, really fun teams to talk about, and then you got the Raiders. So
that's generally how that works in this division.
I'm excited, man. I've been looking forward to this episode. So I'm glad we finally made it here.
Yeah. This is going to be a fun one. Before we start, got to give a shout out to my boy Carson Wentz, back on the field, looking good.
And Big Q.
And Big Q, Ryan Kelly, all three back, all three practicing. Give a big shout out to the surgeon that did the foot surgery. Whoever that guy is, we should induct him into the Colts Ring of Honor because that shit is insane. He's literally like 13 days removed from that, and he's just like out there moving like it's nothing. Like this is great.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. And then quick moment of silence for my sweet prince, Travis Etienne, who I have to wait yet another year to get to watch in the pros. I was so excited to watch him in the pros in 2019. Then he went back to college, and then or after the 2019 season, and then he went back to college 2020. You know, thought it was going to be this 2021 season was going to be the one, and gotta wait another year, man. This sucks.
Well, yeah, and it's really bad because if anything shows us, if history, kind of shows if anything, it's that Jacksonville will draft another running back in the first round next year. Right. Just further proof on why you don't draft running backs in the first round when you have a running back that ran for 1,400 yards on an undrafted rookie contract.
Definitely a head scratcher, man. But
man, out for I don't want to do it. We did AFC South last week, but man, dude, that team looks rough. Urban Meyer. What are we doing here? Run, pass. Run, pass. Run. What is this? A Seattle Seahawks game?
Yeah, him and Pete been hanging out too much.
Good gosh. That shit was terrible. Trevor Lawrence is getting murked back there on like nearly every play. But hey, you got you got one running back, but whatever.
But thankfully, we don't have to talk about those guys anymore. We get to talk about one of the most fun divisions in football, in my opinion, and might as well start right at the top with the team that has, owned this division for quite some time, in the Kansas City Chiefs. So I'm sure the obvious thing here is for both of us to take the Chiefs to win the division, which I will be doing.
Yes, I concur.
So, but what are your thoughts on the team, though, the makeup, the construction, how their outlook for the year?
Love what they did addressing the offensive line this year. They really went out and spent some resources into that O-line. Lost some pieces there, but also gained some pieces. So we'll see. I mean, they have, I believe somebody said, like 3 rookie starters on the offensive line right now. And then, of course, you have Thuney and
Orlando Brown.
Orlando Brown, which Orlando Brown, he's very much as a road grader, but he never graded out super well in pass coverage, and he's going to be asked to do that a lot. So we're going to see how that turns out. But outside of that, I mean, really the only question is, how long can they keep this going for before, eventually, age catches up to the players. Tyreek's 27. So, I mean, he's probably, definitely got a few more like really good years, at his speed. Travis Kelce's one that, he's getting kind of older as well. And time's undefeated. Nobody stays on top forever. So, I mean,
we'll see that, but Mahomes extension's about to start kicking in too, right? Isn't it like after this season where the big money hits start coming?
Yeah, but even then, I mean, I don't think with the new TV deals and the cap rising, I don't really think it's going to be that bad. And then it's really going to depend too on how long Andy Reid wants to coach as well. He's getting on up there too, and he's just such a. I mean, he's probably one of the 2 or 3 best coaches in the league.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, he's very crucial to what that team does. But yeah, I mean, there's no question. I mean, the really good offensive line, really excited for Clyde Edwards-Helaire if he can stay healthy this year. I know he's already kind of got banged up a little bit, but we'll hope he stays healthy. Wide receiver 2 on the team is kind of a big iffy spot for me as well. It hasn't really shown much this preseason outside of a few Mecole Hardman highlights, but outside of that, I mean, the depth there if Tyreek Hill goes down is not that great. But even then, when you have Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, you have elite weapons. The defense, I love the back end, with Tyrann Mathieu and all those guys. I think Chris Jones moving to defensive end was a really good move. That guy's just an absolute monster on the defensive line. We'll see how the rest of the defensive line, but they are, that's the only thing that worries me is just the depth. Because they're very top heavy, extremely top heavy team. Because I mean, you look at you got the star power, you got Kelce, you got Hill, you got Mahomes, you got CEH, Tyrann Mathieu, Chris Jones, like you got all these huge names, and rightfully so. I mean, basically almost most of those guys are top 50 players in the NFL. When you have that collection of talent, you're going to be one of the favorites to compete in another Super Bowl. The only question I have with the team is if they lose one of those guys. More so, I mean, obviously we know what would happen if Mahomes just lost, heaven forbid that happens. But, but I mean, if Tyreek Hill goes down, who's the other wide receivers that step up? If Travis Kelce goes down, that tight end room is kind of barren. If, Tyrann Mathieu or Chris Jones goes down on defense, is there another defensive lineman that can step up, or, more DBs that can step up in that safety role to replace, or, I mean, you're never going to replace those guys, but I mean, are you going to be able to get similar, production to where you just don't fall off a cliff if one of those guys goes down? I think that's the only thing that can derail them. I don't know they would probably be my favorites to come out of the AFC total, but they're definitely my favorites in this division. And injury is the only thing that I can see derailing that team.
Yeah, I agree completely. I mean, it definitely doesn't hurt whenever you have the best player at the most important position in football on your team. Whenever you've got Patrick Mahomes locked in, he can overcome a lot of those issues. That's
definitely a big thing. Especially like in Tampa Bay, to have the best player at the most important position. It's I'm trolling. I had to get a Tom Brady thing in there. But yeah, Mahomes is just incredible. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, you're good.
I was just cracking a joke. I was cracking.
But I have the same concerns as you, though. Is the team is very dependent on Mahomes, Tyreek, and Travis Kelce, and that's not a bad thing if all those guys are healthy, because they've been dependent on those 3 guys for a couple of years now, and teams haven't been able to stop them regardless. So. But yeah, wide receiver 2 is definitely, it's essentially wide receiver 3 is the question mark, right? Because, whoever you want to call the one, Kelce is a wide receiver. So you've got 2 pass catching options in Hill and Kelce, but between Hardman, Demarcus Robinson, Byron Pringle, the rookie Cornell Powell, can any of those guys step up to provide some type of production, and especially step up in a big way if somebody was to go down? It's definitely a big question mark. I do think their running back room is fine. Darrell Williams is fine. Jared McKinnon is, he's a decent player. And then of course, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, this team isn't very dependent on the running back position. So that doesn't worry me too much, but the depth at the other positions is concerning. And then, after you say the names Chris Jones, Frank Clark, and Tyrann Mathieu, I don't really know what to make of the rest of this defense. The cornerback room is really interesting to me to see how Travarius Ward and L'Jarius Sneed develop and continue to grow.
I do like Sneed a lot. I think Sneed's going to take a leap this year and become one of the premier cornerbacks in the league.
I agree. And so that's interesting to me. So I do think their secondary could be better than possibly expected. But the defensive line behind Chris Jones and Frank Clark, I do think Jerron Reed is a fine player, but that's a little bit concerning. And then their linebacker room, I think, is a little bit concerning as well. So there are some question marks on the defensive side of the ball. But again, like I said, whenever you have the best quarterback in the world playing for your team, he's able to elevate the team and kind of make up for some of those differences. And the biggest thing, the biggest storyline for this team, especially after watching the Super Bowl, has to be the offensive line makeover. Like you said, Orlando Brown has been a better run blocker than pass blocker in the past, but it's also going to be interesting for me because he was obviously asked to run block a lot more than he was pass block whenever he was over there in Baltimore. So, is it just a matter of it being a small sample size of him being asked to pass block is why it didn't grade out as well, whatever the case may be. Now, Joe Thuney is, to me, one of the best guards in football. If not, I'm not going to say the best guard because, you guys got that locked up in Indy, but he is one of the best guards in football. And then Creed Humphrey, I did like a lot in the draft process. I think he is a plug and play center right off the rip. I don't know a lot about the two guys they have on the right side of the offensive line, but they're the center position and the left side of the offensive line I like a whole lot. So I do think and honestly, some of the guys they lost on the offensive line last year, by the way that they looked whenever they were healthy, that might have almost been addition by subtraction. So I do like where the team is heading from the offensive line standpoint. And as long as you can give Mahomes is great at creating, even if he doesn't have time. So if you can just give that guy a little bit of time to do his thing, then this team's going to be in really good shape.
Yeah, so his biggest weakness, really one of his only weaknesses to me, is he drifts back into the pocket, and that can kind of give up. Instead of stepping up into the pocket, he kind of wants to drift back and, obviously go out on a run.
Roll out.
Yeah, roll out and, make those plays. And that's all nice and snazzy, but he's left a lot of clean pockets, and that's kind of got put on the offensive line where, they're not doing their jobs. Like, well, they are doing their job if he would have stepped up. So I'm interested to see. I know he said that was something that he wanted to work on this year, was kind of stepping up more into the pocket instead of drifting back. So now the preseason game they just played, it didn't look like he worked on that at all. But I know that was something that he wanted to really focus on. And if he can do that, I think he might be even better if that's possible. Because that was really one of his only weaknesses, was his tendency to just kind of drift, take some unnecessary sacks, and leave clean pockets. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, like I said, injury is the only thing that's going to derail this team from repeating in this division and being one of the Super Bowl favorites for the year.
Yeah, I agree. So easy enough on the Kansas City Chiefs. So moving on, we've got two directions we can go here. You want to talk about the team with a quarterback or the team without a quarterback?
Well, I will go with my second place team.
Okay.
And that is the Denver Broncos.
All right. Okay.
So, look, it's very rare when you have a team that is this well built to withstand a huge issue at the quarterback position. I think the only other team you could argue has a similar issue to this is the Indianapolis Colts. But even then, I think I trust Carson Wentz a lot more than I trust Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater.
I agree.
But look, from the way that Surtain has looked, the way that they've rebuilt that secondary, that pass rush is insane. The linebackers are really good. Fangio's the defensive coach, like the head coach coaching that defense. There's two things that are consistent, that consistently win in the NFL. And we've seen it play out, over the year. I mean, heck, the Denver Broncos got a Super Bowl because of it. And that is an elite defense in a good running game. I think that they definitely have the elite defense. And just going from, obviously, how much I love Javonte Williams. Melvin Gordon is what he is, not a bad running back.
He's still a talented runner.
Yeah, still a very talented guy. And I think with him being in a 1-2 punch is just going to kind of, accentuate his skill set, especially in the goal line. The guy's just a red zone beast. He's he's always been really good in the red zone. But yeah, I mean, I love Javonte Williams, man. I think he was my favorite running back coming out of this entire draft class. And the fact that Denver will have him to lean on as well. It's they have a very good offensive line. Bowles is one of the best tackles in the league. The running game's good. The weapons are incredible. Jerry Jeudy, I would kind of lean more towards Teddy Bridgewater just because of his decision making and accuracy. He doesn't have the big arm. Yeah, he doesn't have the big arm. He's not going to make the big plays, but I don't think that's what this team needs, honestly, to win ball games. And like I said, there's very few things that are consistent with winning in the NFL, and that's elite defense and really good running games if the quarterback plays mistake-free football. Obviously, it all starts with the quarterback. We know if you have an elite one of them, you can win football games, and that's the most important piece on the team. But if you don't have one of those, if you have those other things on this team, I think they can win. It wouldn't surprise me at all if this team ends up in the wild card game, just because of how great I think this defense is going to be. I think they're going to supplant the Rams as the best defense in the NFL this year. And that's just me talking. If it doesn't happen, you can come on here, shit on me, whatever. But I'm that high on what I've seen from Surtain that if they have a quarter or a cornerback to go along with the guy they got out of Chicago, to go along with, Simmons and, some of these other guys that they have back there in that secondary, along with the pass rush with Von Miller and Bradley Chubb and so on. I mean, I don't know what you do. Because who are you going to throw at if you even have time to throw at all? It's just
right.
It's going to be that kind of a year for the Broncos. And yeah, I would go with Teddy. Like I said, they just need somebody to get the ball in the hands of your playmakers. Mm-hmm. Get Jerry Jeudy the ball. I mean, the guy's open literally every play. There's so many plays out, and it was really frustrating last year to watch the Broncos because you would look on, the film and you would see Jerry Jeudy break a guy off and there wouldn't be anybody within 10 yards of him. And it would just be, the ball would just be sailed. And you just need somebody to get that guy the ball. I know there's a report that came out today, I guess the tight end, Noah Fant was kind of dealing with a leg issue. So we'll see if that lingers, but if that doesn't, I really like the tight end room there. Cortland Sutton coming back is a huge piece for them. I think he's one of the most underrated wide receivers in football, along with KJ Hamler, who's just like an absolute terror this preseason. Every time that guy touches the ball, it seems like he's going 60 yards.
Yeah, he's housing it. Yeah.
I mean, it's insane. And then, like I said, they have a really good offensive line, some really good running backs. The defense is elite. I think that, this is the team, if any team, that can win with a huge question mark at quarterback. And that's only for this year, because once Aaron Rodgers joins up this next offseason, it's game over. It's game over. So a little bit of Peyton Manning strategy there is, let's just go to the Broncos and win us a Super Bowl.
Yeah, and Aaron Rodgers looks to have a lot more left in the tank too, so God, just imagining him at the level he's playing at with this roster, man. Oh my God. I do agree with what you're saying about their defense, though. It would not shock me at all if at the end of this season, this was the number one defense in football. I fully expect them to be a top 3 defense in football. So, the difference between 1 and 3 is not huge. So that would not shock me in the slightest. They definitely they easily have the best secondary in football whenever you're just talking about corners and safeties. I think they've got that locked down between Fuller, Surtain, Callahan, Ronald Darby, and then of course the 2 safeties, Kareem Jackson and Justin Simmons. That secondary is loaded, man. And then
that was their only weakness last year,
right?
And now it's probably their biggest strength.
Yeah. And then you talk about the pass rush, Von Miller. I think Von Miller, I think people are kind of writing him off. And I think that's a mistake. I think Von Miller has plenty left, and him and Bradley Chubb are going to bring plenty of problems, on that pass rush. The defensive interior is just kind of is what it is, but it doesn't really, with all the other strengths on the defensive side of the ball, it doesn't really need to be that great to me. And then this wide receiver room is one of my favorites in football. I'm a huge Sutton fan, a huge Jerry Jeudy fan, a huge KJ Hamler fan, and I think Tim Patrick is really slept on as well. For that to be your wide receiver 4, man, he just goes out there and produces and makes plays. And he was probably, if my memory serves me correctly, I believe last year he was probably their most productive receiver, even despite the quarterback play that Drew Lock was putting out there. And that's your wide receiver 4. And then Noah Fant is talented and athletic as they come from a tight end prospect position. I think, isn't this year 3 for Fant?
Yes.
And that's the magic number for tight ends. There's been plenty of studies here lately that show the breakout year for running backs and receivers. That breakout year has moved to year 2, but for tight ends, the breakout year is still firmly in year 3, and that's what we've got coming for Noah Fant. So if he can stay healthy with his athletic profile and just the how physically gifted he is, mixed with the fact that this is his 3rd year in the league, and that data backs up the fact that this should be a big year for him. They've got all the pass catchers in the world to make something happen. And then, I wasn't as high as Javonte Williams as you, but I still like him as a player. And I think him and Melvin Gordon make for an incredible 1-2 punch. So to where I don't think the quarterback decision is all that important, but I do agree with you that the right decision would be Teddy Bridgewater. It's going to limit the upside the offense would have, but you don't need a whole lot of upside whenever your defense isn't going to be giving up very many points as long as you can sustain some drives. My only concern is the offense continually just going 3 and out, and the defense spending 3/4 of the game on the field and just eventually getting gassed and getting burnt. So if Teddy can just sustain some drives, give the defense breaks, and
don't commit turnovers.
Right. Yeah. And just
which Drew Lock has kind of the propensity to do.
Yeah, he will absolutely do that. So this is one of those teams that are right on the bubble for me. So as of right now, I've got them finishing 3rd in the division, behind the team that we'll talk about next. And this has probably been, there's 2 decisions I've really been struggling with. The other one's in the AFC East, but deciding what to do with the Broncos and the Chargers and in terms of finishing 2nd or 3rd in the division has been probably one of the toughest things I've had to decide between, because I love this roster so much, but I've seen so much Teddy Bridgewater that I don't know if I can, and the quarterback position is so important that I don't know if I can quite put them there, but I want to, because I love everything else that I see. And this team this is probably the most frustrating team to talk about, because if you just put a middle of the road quarterback on this roster, you're talking about possibly going to the Super Bowl.
You put Carson Wentz on this roster.
Yeah, you're talking about possibly this being a Super Bowl team, or at least an AFC Championship team. It's just hats off to the Denver Broncos. They've done an incredible job building this team. I do have a little bit more questions than you on the offensive line. I think they're fine, but I don't think it's a great offensive line.
I think they're borderline. I think they're a top 10 unit, honestly. I think they're that good.
Yeah, so you are a little bit higher on their offensive line than me. I guess to be TBD on the offensive line.
Honestly, I think they're at least on par with the Chiefs in the division on the offensive line. Chiefs might have bigger name value, I guess you could possibly see. But I think production-wise, Garrett Bowles is the best offensive lineman probably in this whole division. And then on top of that, they're not really weak anywhere. Everybody else on the offensive line there's no weakness necessarily. Like, there's no bad player. They're either average or above average at every offensive line position. And don't underestimate that in the NFL. That's, if you have just average offensive linemen in the NFL at every spot, you're doing something right, because usually every team has 1 or 2 guys on the offensive line that just kind of cause the whole thing to come crashing down.
Yeah, no, that's very true. But yeah, I mean, as of right now, I've got this team finishing third, right behind. I think this is going to be a hell of a battle too. This division is, as we talked about at the very beginning of the podcast, this division is very fun at the top with these three teams, two of which we talked about now, and the third we'll get into here shortly. But
Yeah. I think,
yeah, I'm very excited for the
yeah. So
Broncos
for
to
the
mention the
Broncos, for me,
defense.
I'll just end it on this. Like, I think their floor, absolute floor, and I'm talking about they're getting below average level quarterback play, injuries, just kind of stuff like that. I think their floor is 7 wins. Um, I think if everybody stays healthy and they get average quarterback play, I think this is a double-digit win football team that makes the playoffs.
Yeah, I could agree with that. If Teddy is better than I'm expecting him to be, then this is a playoff team. I don't have much faith in either of the two quarterbacks, which is where I struggle. But yeah, if Teddy proves me wrong, if he's better than I think he's going to be, then yeah, this will be a team that I miss on, and they'll be a playoff team without a doubt.
Yeah. So now let's move on to the other, kind of right there in the thick of things, AFC West squad, and that is the Los Angeles Chargers. It's still weird for me to say that.
I know.
The Los Angeles Chargers, and this is kind of this is another hard team to crack down because outside of a few pieces on offense, I'm not a huge fan of their offense. I really like Justin Herbert. I want to see him do it another year to make sure that last year wasn't just kind of, a flash in the pan. But I mean, obviously, the guy's talented for sure. Love Austin Eckler. Absolutely love Austin Eckler. I think he's a fantastic running back. Keenan Allen's right up there, probably one of the top 2 to 3 route runners at the wide receiver position in the NFL with
definitely.
Devontae and
Stephon Diggs.
Stephon. Jerry Judy's up there as well. I mean, yeah, that's Keenan Allen's great. Outside of Keenan Allen, I want to love Mike Williams so much.
I still do. I refuse to give up, man.
But he hasn't done it. So I'm hoping this is the year he does, because I loved him coming out. I love Mike Williams, the player. I love the size, the speed, the hands. I don't want to see this be another injury-riddled year where he's putting up 500 yards, but if he can take that next step, I'd feel a little bit better about the wide receiver room.
Sure.
And the offensive line, there's some question marks there. I did really like them going out and getting Lindsley. I think Bulaga, if he can return back to form, could be a decent. And the rookie they drafted, if he hits, I mean, this could be a really solid offensive line. The interior still has some question marks to me, but outside of that, I mean, Justin Herbert's so mobile that you can kind of afford to take a few chances there and see if you can get some hits. But yeah, the defense is where I think this team, if healthy, can really make some money. I love the defensive line. Linebackers are decent. Secondary's decent. The biggest problem with this team, and I feel like we say this every single year with the Chargers, is their medical staff.
Yep.
I don't know if there's some curse on the Chargers or not, but every year, key players at very key positions seem to be lost for extended amounts of time. And so that's always going to be factored into the Chargers for me, because it's literally every single season. So until that doesn't happen, which I would love to see, because I hate seeing talented teams get injured. I hate it. So if the Chargers aren't injured, awesome. I still think they're not as near as talented as the Broncos overall. But I think it's a lot closer of a race. So yeah, the way that I kind of view this team, like I said, ascending, still got some pieces. I think they got the right coach for the job. I really like Staley, and I think they have the right front office. I really like some of the moves they've made, but I still think they're about a year or two away, adding some elite offensive, a few more elite offensive pieces, especially if you can get one more guy on that offensive line. and maybe another really elite pass catching option. Because say what you want, Hunter Henry was a big loss. The tight end room is a big question mark. If Jared Cook can stay healthy, we'll see. We don't know what Parnham is. We saw him kind of play well in the XFL, but this ain't the XFL.
No, it's not.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with that. But there's a lot of question marks outside of that, and then the defense, like I said, it's I love Bosa. I love some of the other guys that they have there, but I want to see everybody stay healthy and productive, because I think Staley is going to be a fantastic defensive type of coach with some of the talent that they have there.
Yeah. So for me, the big thing, you have to stay water. You have to take your losses, and it was a big swing and a miss for me on Justin Herbert. I was not a Herbert fan coming out of college. I did not like the pick, and I don't think what he did his rookie year. I think his rookie year was too good to be a fluke, and me putting this team in second place is a lot of me owning that miss, and thinking he's going to take this team to the next level. And outside of the quarterback position, injury was my biggest concern for this team. And, I'm just hoping new staff coming in, I'm going to project these guys to be healthy this year. It's something that is dangerous to do for a Chargers team, because we've never seen a fully healthy Chargers team in as long as I can remember. And it's a shame that that's the case, but I think Justin Herbert takes another step in year two. I love Austin Eckler, and then Justin Jackson is fine. Larry Roundtree, the rookie, we'll see what I don't think Joshua Kelly as much. We'll see what Larry Roundtree can do as the third running back there. But Austin Eckler is an incredibly talented running back. And then I do really like their wide receiver room. I love Keenan Allen. I'm still in on Mike Williams. I refuse to quit. And then their Josh Palmer, the rookie out of Tennessee, I'm a big fan of his as well. So I love the pass catchers at the wide receiver position. Yeah, as you said, Jared Cook and Donald Parham is a big question mark, but I think they have enough pass catchers to get the job done. And the biggest thing for me is their offensive line might be one of the, if not the most improved unit in football, in my opinion, because this was quite possibly the worst offensive line in football last year. And adding Rashawn Slater in the first round, grabbing Corey Linsley out of free agency, those are two huge upgrades. Assuming I project Rashawn Slater to be an extremely talented tackle in this league. If that ends up being incorrect, then obviously this is not as big of an improvement as I thought. But I love that. So I think that was the biggest question mark for this team outside of injury. Once Justin Herbert answered, his doubts. So for them to address that, is huge. And as far as the defensive side of the ball goes, obviously, Joey Bosa, there's plenty to love there, but he's probably going to be a double-digit sack guy. And Chris Harris Jr., I don't want to write him off yet. I don't think he looked as good, but I don't want to write him off yet because of what he has coming in terms of a defensive mind and Brandon Staley. And then I love the pick of Asante Samuel Jr. I would not be surprised if by the end of this season, we're talking about him as the best cornerback on this team. I think he'd be that good. And then I think we're all forgetting just how great Derwin James is whenever he's right. I mean, that guy has all of the ability to be the best safety in football whenever he's healthy, whenever he's fully Derwin James. And it's been a while since we've gotten to see that, because he has had to deal with some injuries. So we'll see if he's the same Derwin James, coming back. But when he's right, I'm not sure there's a better safety in football. And
he's looked great in camp. He's looked great.
Yeah. So my hope is that continues into the season. And while I'm not as high on this Chargers defense as I might have been 2 or 3 years ago, some of their big pieces at linebacker and other positions have aged out and moved on and things like that, to where, if they could have had a guy like Herbert like 2 years ago and were able to stay healthy, you might have been talking about, some really, really elite, you would have been almost having the same conversation you're having about the Broncos. I think there are enough defensive pieces here. And what I saw from Brandon Staley, obviously this is coming from a Rams fan, so I'm a little bit biased here.
Those colored glasses.
Yeah, but look, before Brandon Staley came on as a defensive coordinator for the Rams, the Rams defense was really more middle of the pack in terms of where they finished under Wade Phillips, and the personnel was not very different going from the last year of Wade Phillips to last year with Brandon Staley. And Brandon Staley took them from a middle of the pack defense to the number one defense in football. And so with all the potential this defense does have, I fully expect him to squeeze every single bit of what they can give out of them with what he brings to the table as a defensive mind. So where they might lack in talent on the surface in some positions, I think Staley will make up for. And that fact, or that opinion of mine, mixed with the talent that I believe they have and the second year lead that I think Justin Herbert could make, I actually, in preparation for this episode, I had to change some projections because, I mean, spoiler, we haven't talked about the AFC East yet. Before I really started looking at this division, I had two AFC East teams making the playoffs, and I had to change that because I've got the Chargers finishing second in this division, and I have them grabbing the last playoff spot in the AFC as well. So I have been rising on the Chargers, and I think, you know, the only thing that I'm going to continue to worry about, because it's impossible not to worry about with the Chargers, is health. But outside of that, I think between free agency and the draft and then their head coaching hire, I think they had an absolutely incredible offseason. And I'm really excited about this team.
Yeah. I mean, you're right to be excited, and I can definitely see where that goes. But like I said, I still think they're just a few pieces away from being legit contenders. And that's even with, if Justin Herbert is able to take another leap. I just don't see the pieces, you know, maybe some guys emerge this year, like you were saying, but you know, a year or two from now, I think we'll definitely be putting them there, depending on what happens with the Broncos quarterback position. You know, if one of those guys, you know,
you know, and don't hear what I'm not saying either. You know, I said they were going to grab the last spot in the playoffs for the AFC. So I'm not calling these guys Super Bowl contenders, you know, nothing like that. Yeah. But I do.
I mean, look, anybody. I mean,
look, and this is
the 9-7 Giants got hot. I mean, once you get in the playoffs, it's a new thing.
This is a continual trend for me in the NFC East. I took the team with the quarterback that I believed in more, even though Washington had the better roster. I took Dallas. In the AFC South, even though I think the Colts have the better roster, I took the Titans. And now for the second place in this division, even though I believe the Broncos definitely have the better overall roster, I'm taking the Chargers to finish second. This is something that I'm putting my faith in the quarterback position more than I probably should. And at least one of these divisions, if not multiple of them, it's probably going to bite me.
AFC South.
that is number one on my list of ones where I think it could turn around and bite me, especially with how quick Wentz came back. But
well, have you seen him in practice?
Oh yeah, I love Wentz, man. I've been watching.
Have you seen him?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
At the end of the year, Ryan Tannehill will not be the best quarterback in the AFC South.
Ooh. I'm not gonna be mad.
I'm just saying.
Look, I love Wentz, and I've been a strong Wentz supporter since since the day he was drafted.
I'm just saying.
He'll be the number one guy I'll be happy to be wrong about. But this is a continual trend for me that I've noticed, since we started doing these divisional breakdowns, is I have been putting a lot of faith in the guys I believe in at the quarterback position, just because of the difference that they can make in a game, especially with the rules and how things are kind of just catering to the quarterback position. My projections have been catering to the quarterback position as well. So
I still think coaching, I mean, when it comes to quarterbacks, look, every quarterback in the NFL is talented. Literally every single one of them. The biggest
talking about 32 guys on the entire planet that are fit to play the position.
Yeah. I mean, you could look at the shittiest quarterback who's the worst quarterback in the NFL right now?
Starting wise.
Yeah, who's the worst starting quarterback in the NFL?
Maybe Tyrod.
Yeah, and Tyrod.
Assuming Tyrod starts for the Texans.
Yeah, assuming, or like Davis Mill. I mean, yeah, you could look at that, but I mean, Tyrod Taylor would go to the CFL or any of these other football leagues.
He'd be the MVP.
He'd be the MVP of the league.
Yeah, Tyrod's incredible.
Yeah,
he's awesome, man.
Yeah, the biggest. to me, the biggest difference is, look, all these guys can make all the throws for the most part. I mean, now, like, not everybody's going to be Patrick Mahomes, or,
Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady.
Yeah, Rodgers, Brady, Carson Wentz. Not everybody's going to be
Matthew Stafford. Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah, Matthew Stafford.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing to me with the quarterback position is coaching. It's always been coaching.
Absolutely.
That is the biggest thing. The difference between Patrick Mahomes being Patrick Mahomes and Patrick Mahomes being just another really talented quarterback is going to Andy Reid versus going to Matt Patricia. Or
Adam Gase.
Yeah, or Adam Gase, or
Ryan Tannehill is a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
He literally had to deal with Adam Gase, and he was left for dead. And then he came to Tennessee, and
even look at some of these other guys that are tearing up the preseason. Trevor Lawrence, drafted number 1, one of the best prospects in the NFL has seen in how many years. That's what they've been saying, and he's not really looked that great because he's throwing,
good, but he hasn't.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, his offensive line's bad. He's throwing to dudes that are, they're not getting schemed open. Every throw the guys make is either contested by a DB, dropped by a wide receiver, or he's getting smacked in the face. Meanwhile, you got freaking Mac Jones over here, not really that athletic, extremely accurate. And the guy just marches, just shredding people, just marching up and down the field.
This exact conversation is why I have so much faith in Trey Lance, because it's a perfect mix of so much talent mixed with the coach that is going to put him in the position he needs to be put in to succeed.
And that's why, another thing of, with Justin Fields, like, we all agree, we love Justin Fields, love him. The internet loves him. He's made some fantastic plays this preseason.
I don't trust
that offense look.
Yeah, I don't trust him one bit, and it sucks for Fields. And then I think that's why I've grown on Herbert.
Well, that's my biggest thing with what I've kind of noticed with Zach Wilson. So he was by far the guy that I was the lowest on.
I liked him more than Mac Jones, but less than everybody else by a decent margin.
Yeah, I was the same way. Like, I actually liked Mac Jones a little bit more than I liked Zach Wilson. You know who the 2 best rookies so far have been in the preseason? Mac Jones and Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
And you know what the biggest difference is between those guys and the other one? Look at the way their offenses are schemed. Like, Zach Wilson, I know, he's not really a household name, but LaFleur, not Green Bay's coach, but he's actually his brother. And we all know how great of an offensive coordinator and offensive coach LaFleur is in Green Bay. But, his brother is there down as the offensive coordinator with the Jets. Zach Wilson is hitting wide open guys constantly.
Well, look, and Robert Saleh is a defensive minded head coach, but he came from an incredible, an incredible offensive mind. So I'm sure he probably picked up a thing or two, coaching alongside Shanahan.
Yeah, well, that's just like I said,
at least be able to put the right people in the room with him to paint the picture of what he wanted to see. So it is shown, because look, I'll be the first to admit, I think I might have screwed the pooch on that. And I know it's only been 2 preseason games. Like, I get that. Like, we don't know about the regular season, but some of the throws this dude has made in the preseason, the arm talent's definitely there.
Holy shit. Like, wow. And I think that's why I'm so high on Carson Wentz. Like, was I the biggest Carson Wentz fan, before he got traded to Indy? I liked him as a player, especially in fantasy. Like, I think I had him as like one of the top 5 quarterbacks in fantasy going into last year before the disaster happened, because I thought he was primed for a huge year in fantasy, and obviously that didn't play out. But I think that's why I'm so big on him this year, and it's not even the Colts thing. It's more of just like, I know what Frank Reich is.
Oh, you've already seen it with Frank.
Yeah. Well, you've seen him with Frank. Like, I get that. But even
already.
Then, yeah, you've seen those two. But even without it being Carson Wentz, I've seen Andrew Luck have the best year of his career with Frank Reich. I've seen Phillip Rivers who everybody told me was washed whenever the Colts signed him, have a really great season with Frank Reich. I've seen Jacoby Brissett, who completely has shit the bed multiple times, come out and have a really good season with Frank Reich. I've seen multiple quarterbacks with Frank Reich come out and play their best football. And obviously we know what Carson Wentz did when he had Frank Reich. I mean, I was actually weirdly, I don't mean to get in off the subject here before we hit the Raiders, but the NFL 100 is going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
One, there's not a single offensive lineman in the top 33 because Quentin Nelson was 33. He was the highest ranked offensive lineman on the list. That's a load of bullshit. Offensive linemen need love. They are literally the engine of an entire team.
Yep.
So yeah,
I agree.
There's
Big Q and numerous other guys should be higher than that without a doubt.
Yeah, there's no way there's 30 plus players in the league.
No.
Better than Quentin Nelson, better than Zach Martin, who was ranked in the 50s.
Yeah, that's terrible.
What are we doing here? Yeah, before Bakhtiari, are you serious? There's 30 plus players better than David Bakhtiari. Are you insane? Not true. But I was watching some of the older NFL top 100s because I got curious. And it's just like, I want to see how this list has been ranked consistently over the last 2 or 3 years. We're going back, I believe it was after the 2018 season. You know who the number 3 ranked player on the NFL top 100 was?
I'm assuming it was Carson Wentz.
It was Carson Wentz. The number 3 player overall. That's insane.
I'm with it, man. I love the guy.
And that was when he was a Frank Reich. So, I got a little excited. And then seeing some of the throws he's made in practice, I guess my vision might be a little clouded because I've had to watch Jacob Eason and Sam Allinger for most of the preseason. But yeah, it's been.
Look, if he's his normal self and if he's his old self, it doesn't even have to be like, the MVP trajectory he was on before.
Oh, just 2018, 2019.
If he is that Carson Wentz and he can play the entire season, the Colts are going to 100% prove me wrong and they're going to win that division. Like Carson Wentz is a legit talent at the quarterback position, man. I've been a big fan of his since the day he got drafted. The Rams had the number 1 overall pick, and I was banging the table, hoping and praying they would take Carson Wentz. Like, this isn't something that I just randomly came up with. I've been a big Wentz fan.
Who knows what he would have done with Sean McVay?
Yeah, there's no telling, man. There's no, because I fully believe he is more talented than Jared Goff is.
Yeah, not question. I think Carson Wentz just pure talent. Like, if you're just talking just pure talent, like, smarts, the arm, the movement, like just pure talent. He's probably one of the 10 most talented quarterbacks, and might even say higher. Just
he's definitely within like the top 15. I think it would be tough to argue at that point. Like, you might have.
You take last year out. That's what I'm saying. I know last year's really
in the top 10,
but I'm talking about just pure talent. The guy, like, I've watched that guy in practice make throws that I think maybe 4 to 5 other quarterbacks in the league can make in practice.
If he would have went to McVay with the mix of with McVay brings from an offensive mind standpoint, and then just from what the Rams surrounded Goff with versus what the Eagles surrounded Wentz with, it's night and day with the
Eagles got a Super Bowl out of it. The offensive look. And outside of last year, he's had a really good offensive line.
Yeah.
Pass catchers have been
just a matter of health. But the pass catchers and the play calling
and the running backs.
Once Frank Reich left, the play calling took a big hit, and that was evident from the jump. And then the pass catchers, the offensive line, the only question for that was, could they stay healthy or not? Because they had talent on the offensive line. But
I'm gonna say something borderline blasphemous, and I know today being the 2-year anniversary, it really kind of hits home to me. Of what today is, right? The 2-year anniversry. Andrew Luck
retirement. Yeah, I did see that earlier today. Yeah,
it happened 2 years ago today.
A lot of emotions. Today's Mamba Day too. 8/24.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
A lot of emotions today.
Yeah, but I think this offense is going to be better than the 2018 Colts offense with Luck. Just from some of the stuff that I've seen, it is eerily, I mean, I'm talking very, 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 very similar to me watching training camp with Andrew Luck. Like the pocket movement, the arm angles, the ability to, he at T.Y. Hilton rolling right. I mean, this is only his second day of practice. It looks like the guy hasn't missed a beat. He literally rolled out on the run and dropped a 65-yard bomb to T.Y. Hilton in practice over Xavier Rhodes today. On the run. Like, that's the stuff that, like, I saw with Luck, and that's the way this offense operated. And it's looked so similar to that, except instead of having, Marlon Mack and those guys, like, now he's got a better offensive line than Jonathan Taylor. So I'm not making this a Colts podcast. Let's get on to the Raiders. Let's get on.
Look, if you haven't figured out yet how low we are on the Raiders, we would rather talk about the 2018 top 100. We'd rather talk about rookie quarterbacks in preseason. We'd rather talk about
definitely rather talk about Carson Wentz.
The
last 2 days have got me fucking hype. Okay, I'm so hype.
Eventually, we have to talk about the Raiders, so we might as well just bite the bullet and
get this over with. And here's the thing: I don't mind the Raiders. I don't hate the Raiders as a franchise. They're one of the most storied franchises.
With the Raiders, but the team sucks. It is what it is. The team sucks.
And here's the other sad part. I thought they were ascending as a team before this offseason. They got worse. They got worse. And it makes no sense.
They had one of the best strengths in football. It's like
they literally had a top 10 offensive, borderline top 5.
I was going to say they probably had a top 5 offensive line, and you cannot put enough stock in having a top offensive line in football. And they took that whole thing and just blew it to shits. And then they turned around in the draft and they did a very Raider thing as of late, and they reached again after blowing up the offensive line. They reached for an offensive lineman and Alex Leatherwood. In my opinion, this is my opinion, but look, I believe that they reached for Alex Leatherwood. I believe they reached for Henry Ruggs. I believe they reached for Clinton Farrell. Whenever in terms of Clinton Farrell, Josh Allen was still on the board. In terms of Henry Ruggs, Jerry Jeudy, and CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, all those guys were still on the board. They continually reach for guys in the first round, and this is just my personal opinion, but I don't like the reaches that they take. And then on top of those reaches that they're taking, they completely blew up the biggest strength on this team. Like, I mean, Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake is a very talented 1-2 combo at running back, but you don't have an offensive line to block for him anymore. Outside of that, I think Brian Edwards still has some promise. John Brown is one of the better.
Shoot, I mean, if you listen to the Raiders, Brian Edwards is fucking Randy Moss and Terrell Owens combined. Yeah. I mean, he's going to be the greatest football player of all time.
Yeah, they make me want to not like Brian Edwards, but I do like Brian Edwards. And Darren Waller, I love Darren Waller. He's a top 3 tight end in football. But I mean, outside of the running back room and Darren Waller, what is there really to like about this team?
I think Derek Carr, he's underrated as a quarterback.
I mean, he's fine, but he's not good enough to overcome all the holes that are on his team. He doesn't get enough
respect for, I think, how good he has been the last couple of years.
No, I think that's fair. But like he's going to continue getting disrespected because his team's so bad. He's going to get buried. And the defensive interior, who cares? The defense, like the pass rush outside of, I don't even want to pronounce the guy's name wrong, but the free agent that they brought in,
Yannick Ngakoue.
Yeah. It's easy to like him.
I think Max Crosby. I think Crosby's a decent option there.
Yeah, and so that kind of furthers my point. Is we've talked about two edge rushers now. We still haven't talked about their number 4 overall pick from a couple of years ago, and Clinton Farrell. The linebacker room. I mean, they got Nicholas Morrow. Corey Littleton was a big free agency signing that they got over from the Rams, and he has not played up to par for what he for the numbers he produced in the Rams defense a few years ago. At the corner position, they've got Casey Hayward, Trayvon Mullen, and then Jonathan Abram, Carl Joseph. Now, I loved the second round pick of Trayvon Mulrig as far as safety goes. I did think that was a great draft pick. I thought Mulrig was the best safety in this draft, and they were able to grab him. I think he might have even been the third safety off the board. So I did like that pick, but I mean, this team, I don't think I've soured on a team more than I have the Raiders this offseason.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
I think that they could very well, and it won't be Derek Carr's fault, because I do think he's better than what he's given credit for, but I would not be shocked to see this team picking in the top 5 in the draft next year.
No, yeah, I agree. I agree. I think they're going to be one of the worst teams in football this year. And the sad, I keep saying the sad thing, but at some point it's not even sad. It is what it is. But I mean, John Gruden's not going anywhere. He's 5 years into a 10-year deal. He's still got 5 more years. And what did he sign up? $100 million? Is that what they paid?
Something like that, yeah.
I mean, that guy's not going anywhere.
I don't even know if he's 5 years in yet. I think this might be his 4th year, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, he's not going anywhere.
He's still got plenty of time.
Yeah, to blow it up even more, because apparently Mike Mayock, who is the GM, has been completely getting ran through in the draft. He's wanting to draft, some of these other guys, and then John Gruden, who's has the final say on the roster, is basically picking these other dudes. And Mayock apparently has been extremely frustrated. So I mean, you have tension in the front office. You have ownership.
Get out. I would not want my name attached to that shit.
Yeah. I mean, you have ownership that's not really, there. They're just, I mean, who knows with Mark Davis? I mean, judging by that haircut the dude's got, I mean, it's, who knows? But I mean, it's just kind of sad to see that a team that once had some really decent promise has been completely derailed by bad decisions and bad drafting. And they're just heading further and further downhill until, Mark Davis basically wises up, fires John Gruden, lets him go back to Monday Night Football, and can hire some real smart football people that aren't stuck in 1998.
Look, and if there's a fan base out there that would somehow find our 20 subscriber having ass podcast and somehow make it to the very end of the podcast to listen to us talk about the Raiders, it would probably be the Raiders because of how passionate that fan base is. We don't have anything against the Raiders.
Yeah, I love their fan base.
The culture and how passionate the fans are and everything is incredible for football. It's just that the front office has done a disservice to the fans. And
they probably agree with us.
I'm not a Raiders fan by any means, but I'm upset for Raiders fans for what the front office has done to this team, between the draft and free agency and making trades, sending offensive linemen to other teams for pennies. I even saw the other day that they reached out to the Bears about trading for Khalil Mack.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have had it. Granted, the trade itself wasn't a terrible move because they did get a lot of capital to get young assets for the team.
And then they wasted the capital.
But yeah, that's the problem. They wasted the draft capital, and you wouldn't have had to reach out for Khalil Mack because you could still have Khalil Mack. But yeah, I don't know, man. This team. Look, first place in this division was really simple for me. Last place in this division was very simple for me. And then I really struggled I ended up landing with the Chargers finishing second, the Broncos finishing third in a very close race, and then the Raiders, rounding out the division. But
yeah, I'm going to go with the Broncos.
Yeah, and I can't fault you, man. The Broncos and the Colts are two teams that I fully expect could prove me wrong this year. And then, one other team that I'm really struggling with, we'll get into that. It'll be the last of the divisional previews we get into, but
yeah, because after this episode, we only got 2 more weeks, boys. 2 more weeks.
We're heading to the AFC. We're heading to the AFC North next, and then we'll hit the AFC East, and then we've got our playoff primer. We'll where we'll go over. So there'll be at least 1 week where you guys will get hit with 2 episodes for us to be able to fit all this into before the season starts. But then we'll hit our playoff primer. We'll make our
predictions.
We've already got the division. We'll already have the division winners out of the way at that point. It'll just be a matter of picking our wild card teams, picking our seedings, and giving you our breakdown of how we think the playoffs will play out, which is always fun to do before a single regular season game has even been played. So it'll be fun to see how foolish we look, doing that. Here come January, but that's all that stands between us and real NFL football, man, and it is so close.
Oh yeah, I've been a preseason junkie. I mean, I'm literally I'm constantly watching preseason games. I went back yesterday. Just to tell you how hype I got on Wentz. Not to even get back on this soapbox, but I went back yesterday and watched the 2017 Week 7 Eagles versus Washington football game. That's how hype I got. So
yeah, it's I've looked. You're not the only one that's guilty. I've been watching a whole shit ton of, and it's painful because for me to say I've been watching Detroit Lions football tape, but I've been spending a lot of time on the internet watching some Detroit Lions football, just watching Matthew Stafford, just trying to get hype. Because look, I don't fault the Rams for it. I'm glad that they do it, but I don't get to watch the guys I want to watch in preseason because the Rams do not let the starters play a single fucking snap in preseason. It's been that way since McVay's been there. I don't get to see my team play until week 1. Not even a glimpse. The starters don't touch the field. And so I'm not going to get to see Matthew Stafford in the Rams uniform officially until week 1. So I've been getting any Matthew Stafford clips that I can get to hold me over until week 1. So you're not alone, man. I'm over here struggling in a bad way.
So, well, I will go ahead. We'll end it here, and we will let Andrew do the closing, and we will get on to next week's episode shortly.
Yeah, so as always, thank you for sticking it out with us, Raiders fans. I'm sorry, but thank you guys for hanging out with us for another divisional preview. If you can't tell, we are very excited for the beginning of the season, and if you're right there with us, we're going to keep this train rolling as the season goes on and react to the weeks as they come by. So, be sure to like and subscribe on anywhere you can find podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Google. It doesn't really matter. We're probably there. And then, of course, as always, if you want to check us out on YouTube, we are there as well. Be sure to go over. And if you weren't already listening on YouTube, go over on YouTube and drop a comment on this video and let us know where you agree, where you disagree, and like the video if you've made it this far. And then subscribe to the channel. And then whenever you subscribe to the channel, click that little bell that's going to pop up. That's going to notify you whenever our new videos are released. We're talking about 1, maybe 2 videos a week, depending on how we how we start running things during the NFL season. So we're not going to blow you up with notifications, but then you'll be aware whenever new videos do drop. But yeah, we've only got a couple more division previews left, a playoff primer left, and then we're right in the thick of things in the NFL season. So hopefully you guys can join us for this ride. We're going to be here regardless. We're going to keep doing this shit regardless. If we got 1 person listening, 10 people listening, it doesn't matter. We're going to be here. So if you want somebody to be able to hash out the NFL season with, we're here for you. So like, subscribe, all that good shit. And we appreciate you guys.
Yeah, and remember, we are more accurate than ESPN, Yahoo, all those other sites. So I mean, if you want some
in the pudding, at least for round 1 NFL mock draft sake, we knocked those guys out. So
hey, I had Shohei Ohtani as my MLB MVP this year as well. So
yeah,
you could have won some money if you listened to the podcast.
Very true.
We will end it there. Thank you guys so much for listening. We will be back next week with our AFC North preview. Browns fans, get ready. You're going to be excited.